Center for the Study of World Religions, Harvard Divinity School.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Center for the Study of World Religions. My name is Charles Stang. I have the great privilege of serving as the director of the center. I'm so proud of you all for making it out in this weather to this room. I was worried, as I often am, that the weather will cut into attendance. I should not have worried. It must be a testament to Professor Pinchman's prestige. In any case, I also want to issue a welcome to our Zoom participants and thank them for their patience as we had a slightly late start. Again, if you're not here in Cambridge, you may not know that we're in the midst of a small snowstorm. So we wanted to give people time to make it here, and so they have. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome Professor Pinchman to the Center for the Study of World Religions to give this year's annual lecture on the Hindu view of life. Now, Professor Pinchman is no stranger to Harvard Divinity School. She was a research associate in the Women's Studies and Religion program across the yard there in 2001. So it's wonderful to have you back. And I will soon invite to this podium my colleague Frank Clooney, who will be introducing Professor Pinchman. Let me just say a word about my colleague Frank. So I have been the director here at the center for 8 years, 8 blissful years. And for the 7 years prior to that, Frank was the director. And this lecture series on the Hindu view of life owes its origin to Frank and the generous support of Akhil Gupta. Mr. Gupta sadly had to change his plans and could not join us for the lecture, but he sends us his best, and he is delighted that you are the lecturer this year. So we wish to thank him for his support and wish him well on his travels. It's kind of astonishing that it's 15 years between us that we have been running this center. But in any case, I was so proud to take this center over from Frank. He left it in wonderful condition, and I've been very proud to continue his legacy, and not least this wonderful lecture series, which has been running since, to the best of our recollection, 2014. So please join me in welcoming Frank Clooney.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for introducing me as I have the honor of introducing Tracy Pinchman, our speaker tonight. I mean, if we've gone this many years so far, when you've done 10 more, we can just like keep adding to it. It'll be brilliant. So many things to say. So I'm delighted to be seeing this series flourish. So the donation by Akhilesh Gupta was really visionary in terms of the vision of Dr. Radhakrishnan, the Hindu view of life, the vision of Hinduism in the contemporary world. Many people forget that in 1960, in November, when the center was opened, Dr. Radhakrishnan was the opening day speaker. So he was here in 1960, long before I guess anyone in the room was here. The Nataraj on the back wall there, over by the food, is a gift from Dr. Radhakrishnan. So we have a connection with him, and it's wonderful to have the series in his name. And I can't think of a better speaker to continue this legacy and to talk about how Hinduism lives in the modern world than our speaker today, with the theme before us today, Recasting the Hindu Goddess in the American Landscape, the translocal life of the Parashakthi Temple in Pontiac, Michigan. So it's an amazing theme, an amazing possibility before us, and we have a wonderful speaker. Tracy Pinchman. Charlie already mentioned that she spent a year here over at Women's Studies 25 years ago or so now. She also, when my long lamented deceased colleague Ann Monius and I had a series on South Asian religions colloquium, Tracy was a speaker maybe 10 years ago or so about that. So you're a welcome visitor back again to be with us. Tracy has a PhD from University of California, Santa Barbara in religious studies, South Asian religions. She has been for, 35 years now, a professor at Loyola University of Chicago, where she's a professor. And she does many roles on that campus. She teaches a wide range of courses, as one has to in a large university campus. But she is also, in addition to being a professor in that department, she's associate faculty of women's studies at the university. She's director of global studies program at Loyola University for the last almost 20 years, that's 16, 18 years now. She's the assistant director of international studies at Loyola, that was way back, and as well as having been the director of Asian studies for a time. So she's done these various roles on campus, as well as doing her teaching and work of service. She has a number of books, we'll hear about them tonight, a number of edited volumes, Seeking Mahadevi, Constructing the Identities of the Great Hindu Goddess, 2001, Women's Lives, Women's Rituals in Hindu Tradition, 2007, with Rita Sharma in the GTU at Berkeley, Goddess and Woman in Hinduism. I'll pass this one around just so people can see her book, as long as I get it back afterwards. A book kind of taking up with topical themes and contemporary writers this theme of Goddess and Women in Hinduism. And so the whole way that this works out is so important. And then a journal issue of the International Journal of Hindu Studies came out 2025, Ethical and Political Dimensions of Narrative and Practice in Contemporary Hinduism. So again, always pushing us into the contemporary scene, the modern world in so many ways. And then the three monographs that we're grateful for, The Rise of the Goddess in Hindu Tradition, 1994, Guest at God's Wedding, Celebrating Kartik Among Women in Benares, 2005. And then the book we have behind us celebrating tonight and out of which the lecture will come, Goddess Beyond Boundaries, Worshipping the Eternal Mother at a North American Hindu Temple, 2024. And I'll also pass this around. You'll see my various markings and so on that go with it. But about the temple in Pontiac, Michigan, its roots in the Tamil context of South India. And it's a wonderfully multi-level book. I tried out parts of it in class last year. And the way in which it weaves together archival work and archaeological work about the temple in India, interviewing people there, interviewing people here, both the practical and the spiritual dimensions of the crossover from Chennai, Madras, to Michigan, why that place in Michigan, interviews with all kinds of people involved in the temple from the beginning, and then newcomers who came along the way. And I think with a really interesting personal touch. So it's not one of those books where the author's writing about that, but really talking about themselves. But that Tracy has the wonderful gift of making it clear that she's invested in the work she's doing. She cares about the people she's talking to. And from the accidental beginning of the project, when she kind of stumbled upon it, to the kind of finishing of the project, finishing of the book, she's sort of there and present. And that gives a rich kind of personal dimension to the book without pushing it, too much into people's faces. So it's a wonderful book, and I think we will hear some of the wisdom of this book tonight. And we welcome then our speaker, Tracy Pinchman.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Charles and Frank. Listening to you, I suddenly realized I'm actually really old. As Charles mentioned, I was here from 2000 to 2001, the Women's Studies Research Associate Program over here. My daughter, who is now 26 years old, was at the time a baby. And she was in one of the daycare centers over here at Harvard. So I like to joke sometimes to people, my daughter got into Harvard when she was only 5 months old. So beat that. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, as Charles and Frank both mentioned, is this temple in Pontiac, Michigan. But I'm going to start with Radhakrishnan, since that is the point of this lecture. At the inaugural Hindu View of Life lecture, which Vasudha Narayan gave in 2016, Frank read, see, I know more than you do about your own institution. Frank Clooney read aloud the last paragraph of Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan's The Hindu View of Life, which was first delivered as a series of lectures at Oxford 100 years ago in 1926. I do not reproduce the entire paragraph here that Frank read at that lecture, but I wish to note that in his concluding sentences, Radhakrishnan states that Hinduism is a growing tradition, and he calls for a reworking of Hindu principles with special reference to the needs of a more complex and mobile social order, noting that this process was already underway at that time, 100 years ago. He observes earlier in the book, and this is in the second quote, that the world has become a much smaller place with a mingling of populations bringing an interchange of thought with other religions, serving as forces with which we must all reckon. He also notes, and this is the third quote, that the spirit of the age and the need of the hour determined the emphasis in each religion, or we might add, religious community or religious context. 1 century on, Radhakrishnan's words ring even more true than they did in 1926, at least to me. In November of 2024, as Frank has noted, I published a book called Goddess Beyond Boundaries about an American Hindu devotional community and its temple, the Parashakthi Temple in Pontiac, Michigan. For those of you unfamiliar with Midwestern geography, that is where Pontiac is, and yes, it is the place where Pontiac cars were made. They are no longer being made. The plant closed in 2010, I believe it was. Drawing on what I present in that book, I hope to demonstrate in our time together today how this temple community fashions Hindu religious life in the American Midwest in ways that are deeply rooted in established Hindu traditions, but also reflect, to return to Radhakrishnan's words, the complex and mobile social order in which the temple and its community are embedded, thereby exemplifying the kind of intermingling of cultural and religious worlds and the adaptation of religion to the need of the hour that Radhakrishnan describes. Now, this is just one case study of one community, but case studies are important. As Joyce Flukiger notes, they provide a view into the ways individuals interact with and modify dominant ideologies. What we think of as typical or normative often exists more in the imagination of academic researchers than it does in practice, where diversity and change are more often the norm. As Radhakrishnan put it, expressions of religious experience are bound to be varied. This community offers us a glimpse of the ingenuity that contemporary, globally mobile Hindus demonstrate in embracing established Indian Hindu practices, ideas, and deities, but adapting these in ways both large and small as they migrate to new lands. I'll do this in 4 parts. First, I want to look at the way the temple community absorbs the local Pontiac landscape into the Hindu world and establishes the temple as what Mark Ogay calls an anthropological place, namely a space that is rooted in a sense of identity and history versus what he calls non-places, office buildings, airports, buildings that could be anywhere. They could be demolished and rebuilt. They don't have importance. This temple could not be anywhere else, and you'll know why shortly. So that's the first thing I'll look at. Second, how the temple inflects established Hindu concepts of divinity in general, and the goddess in particular, with universalizing scientific and religiously pluralistic discourse suited to the contemporary non-Indian context. Third, how temples and structures at the temple are reimagined, especially in the light of the mingling of populations that Radhakrishna describes, and that brings an interchange of religious thought. And fourth, how the Parashakthi Temple engages and revises established Hindu rites to suit the temple's distinctive mission and context. And this is what the temple looks like today. The Parashakthi Temple, known in English as the Eternal Mother Temple, was founded in October of 1999. Devi means goddess, Mata means mother, so the Devi Parashakthi Temple. During the first 10 years of its existence, the temple was renovated and expanded as the community of devotees grew quickly. The original temple was destroyed in 2018 by a fire and was rebuilt in much grander fashion and reconsecrated in 2022. So it looks different today. What you have on the right side is the original temple. What you have on the left side is the new temple that has been in existence only from 2022. And please ask me about the fire in the questions and answers. There's a whole section about it in the book and how the temple made sense of it and fit it into their theological worldview. The goddess to whom this temple is dedicated is Karumariamman, Black Mariamman, a form of the Tamil goddess Mariamman. The Parashakthi Temple is modeled on an Indian Karumariamman temple in Tiruvarkadu, a suburb of Chennai in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu. And I apologize to those Tamil scholars in the audience. I was trained in Hindi and Sanskrit, so my Tamil pronunciation, I'm sure, is not up to snuff. So I apologize in advance. Karumariamman, this is where, by the way, this is where the temple is located. Sorry for those on Zoom. But if you can see, Chennai is here, and the temple is there. So it's in South India. Karumariamman is a local Tamil goddess in her original South Indian context, and her temple in Tiruvarkadu serves largely local and regional devotees. Mariamman, and that's what the temple looks like from the outside. Mariamman first emerged in South India as a goddess of rural, low-caste communities and a fierce, angry goddess with a voracious appetite for blood sacrifice. In contemporary India, however, she has in many instances moved out of villages and away from her agricultural roots to attract new middle-class and high-caste devotees. Joanne Waghorn refers to this process as the bourgeoisification of the goddess, as she has transformed from a capricious, meat-eating deity, or in Hindu terms, a hot deity, to a benign, cool deity acceptable to middle-class and high-caste sensibilities. And this is not the only goddess to undergo such a transformation. In the north, for example, Kali has also undergone such a transformation in certain temples and communities. Mariamman temples have also moved beyond the boundaries of India into several global contexts as migrating devotees transport their original local deities all over the world. The form that Karumariamman takes in Pontiac is a bourgeoisified form, acceptable to high-caste, middle-class sensibilities. In Tiruvarkadu in South India, in Tamil Nadu, she appears both as in her original form, as a capricious, hot village goddess, and as a bourgeoisified goddess, represented by two different images. The Parashakthi Temple website proclaims further that its goddess is Parashakti. The term Shakti refers to, there she is, refers to the feminine divine power that goddesses embody. So for those of you unfamiliar with Hindu terminology, goddess worship is called Shaktism, the worship of the goddess as Shakti. Parashakti means the highest feminine power and refers to the goddess in her supreme form as the one great goddess, Mahadevi, the divine mother of all that exists, and who has now manifested and taken up residence in the West. The religious life of the Parashakthi Temple has been directly shaped by its president and spiritual leader, Dr. G. Krishna Kumar, who was also a practicing gastroenterologist until his retirement in 2022. And here I must pause and tell you that as I was getting ready to leave yesterday, I received a text informing me that Dr. Kumar passed away Sunday night. And so this talk is partly in tribute to him. He knew I was coming here, and I was to call him after giving this talk and let him know how it was. So I hope he is somewhere in the universe listening. He's also a remarkable individual who I've known now for almost 20 years. And everything is now in the past tense about him that I had put in the present tense. This temple would not exist, and this book would not exist without Kumar. The temple community considers Kumar to be the principal founder of the temple, but Kumar always claimed that the goddess is the actual founder, and he was chosen only to be the mailman who was elected to deliver messages that the goddess spoke to him directly through a series of ongoing revelations. He regularly communicated to the temple community the goddess's missives and offered spiritual instruction through frequent public talks given at the temple. There's also a temple board, okay, and a temple committee. Gives you a sense of how complex the advising structure is for the temple, of course, with Kumar at the head. But Kumar was the undisputed leader of the congregation and its guru, even though he did not like to be called that. He always said that the goddess is the guru. Kumar emigrated from the state of Tamil Nadu in South India to the United States in the 1960s to do his medical internship. On a visit to India in the 1970s, Kumar reports that an astrologer told him he would build a temple to the goddess. But it was not until 1994, according to Kumar, that the goddess appeared to him in a vision that he claims to have had during his meditation practice and called on him directly to build her a temple in the United States so she could radiate her blessings to her Western children and protect them from harm and tragedy. So there's that. He has said that this is the first time the goddess communicated with him directly, even though she did so on a regular basis following this event. While no one else has played the kind of central role that Kumar did in guiding the temple's ongoing religious life, many other individuals, including several Euro-Americans, were active in helping establish it. This is very unusual for Hindu temples in the United States. In the 1990s, for example, Kumar began to develop an important spiritual relationship with a Euro-American female colleague of his, also a medical doctor. He had a day job. In addition to being the spiritual director and the guru, he was also, during the day, had his own medical office and saw patients. So he had this important spiritual relationship with a colleague of his, also a medical doctor, whom I call in the book Jane. Kumar claimed that one day when passing him in the hall, Jane greeted him, teasing that he rarely stopped to say hello to her in the material world, but he was coming to her in her dreams and offering her religious instruction. And she confirmed this report to me. Jane, her husband, and several of their friends were spiritual seekers who engaged in Native American-inspired vision quests together. Jane told Kumar she had had a vision of a goddess, and she described to him how this goddess presented herself in her vision. Jane and Kumar realized they were both being visited by the same deity and were both being called to build a temple for her in Michigan. Kumar reported he did not know this goddess was Karumariamman until the same astrologer he consulted in the 1970s sent him a photo of Karumariamman's icon or murti from the temple in Tiruvarkadu, and both he and Jane recognized her as the goddess who had appeared to them separately in each of their visions. Barbara, another Euro-American Catholic woman who was an associate of Kumar's and was involved in helping found the temple, told me she was sitting in her car in the parking lot early in the building process and saw the goddess dressed in a sari in her rear view mirror. The goddess announced to her, "I am she whom you call the Virgin Mary, and I have need of you in my temple." Following that vision, she told me she became deeply involved in the temple construction process and remained a committed devotee until her death a few years ago. There were actually 8 Euro-Americans, so white Americans, on the board of the temple when I first started visiting in 2007, 8 out of 12. The balance has shifted over the years, but it is still 4 out of 12. And again, this is unusual for Hindu temples in the US. The consecration of the murti of the goddess at the Parashakthi Temple, which established it as a living temple, took place at 4 a.m. on October 19th, 1999, which in the Hindu religious calendar is Vijayadashami, or Victory 10th. Vijayadashami commemorates the episode recounted in the Devi Mahatmya, or glorification of the goddess, an important Hindu scripture, where the goddess battles and ultimately vanquishes a buffalo demon, Mahisha, restoring moral order or dharma to the world. Temple officials claim that the goddess orchestrated the construction of the temple at the very time and place it was built because the world would go through a catastrophic period during the first decades of the 21st century. That sort of tracks out, doesn't it? And the energy installed at the temple, that's all I'll say politically, and the energy installed at the temple would offer the Western world protection from potential disaster. So here we see the combining of traditional Hindu traditions with millennialism, especially of some Christian religious groups, surrounding the year 2000. An abiding mission of the temple is, in fact, one of divine protection, although the temple's mission changed in the 2010s to include making the goddess's grace, her anugraha, available to all who come to the temple and enabling devotees to, quote, explore and experience her. In Tiruvarkadu in South India, she's also associated with protection and healing. Temple discourse asserts that the goddess as latent Shakti, pure divine power, had already been present in the temple's land in Pontiac for millennia before the temple was built. She chose the land and guided the temple founders to locate it, purchase it, and build it at the exact time of her choosing. It is the newly revealed Shaktapita, a seat of the goddess and her power, established for the benefit of the West and the problems that we encounter now in the 21st century. A devotee's testimonial in the temple's first newsletter, published in 2001, after the first portion of the original temple was built, asserts that, quote, a vortex of energy exists at the site, close quote, and that local Native American Indians were drawn to the power of the land and selected it for their sacred worship site. This is very much part of the sacred history of the temple, okay, the founding, if you will, this Talapurana, the founding story, sacred story of the temple. I have found no secular evidence in secular history to back this up, but it really doesn't matter to the people involved, to the devotees involved with the temple. Some devotees told me they've seen giant deer with huge antlers on temple property, which they declare to be spirits of deceased Native American shamans drawn to the temple's land. One world-renowned acharya, or religious teacher from North India, who was invited to preside at a Krishna installation at the temple in 2011, told me while that was his first visit, he could feel intense spiritual energy, proclaiming, quote, this is a place where Shakti dances, close quote. Writing 2 decades ago, Arturo Escobar lamented that the importance of place had dropped out of sight in academic discourse about globalization, and he called for a re-engagement with what he calls place-based imaginaries. Parashakthi Temple discourse guides us back to taking place seriously in the study of global Hinduism. It positions the Hindu goddess in an American landscape through a process of what I called in the book neo-territorialization, namely a process of creating a new sense of anthropological place that emerges in response to migration and cross-cultural communication. For the Parashakthi Temple's devotional community, the goddess is just as intensely present in and just as native to the patch of earth she claims as her American home as she is in any of her seats in India. She has become a translocal goddess, a deity local to more than one locale, with one foot planted firmly in India and another in her new land, the United States, reflecting the translocal status of many of her devotees who are first and second generation Hindu immigrant Indians. The Parashakthi Temple serves as an anchoring node in the goddess's Shaktiscape, that is, the subtle landscape of divine power that for devotees permeates the universe, but manifests in the material realm in concentrated form, only in specific places, including now in the goddess's western house in Pontiac. And if any of you heard Arjuna Padarai in the background, yes, that is what I have in the background for those of you who are familiar with his work. So what about the theology of the goddess? That's the first part, the place, the emplacement of the goddess. The theology of the goddess, promulgated at the temple, embraces established Hindu Shakti theologies, goddess theologies, but adapts these to the contemporary context in universalizing ways, engaging language of both religious pluralism and science. And here the temple follows a path forged in the 19th century by Hindu reform movements. The temple website notes that Kadumariamman is the eternal divine mother who has been worshipped in all cultures the world over since earliest of times, known to us from the ancient written records of Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, and of course India. In fact, the original plan was to build a temple to the divine feminine in all religions. The original plan was to have a shrine to Shekinah, a shrine to Sakina, a shrine to Mary, and so on. But Kumar told the founding group that the goddess appeared to him in a dream and asked that she come only in her form as Kadumariamman, because this is the form that is closest to earthly creations and hence most accessible to humans. As Kadumariamman, the goddess is an Amman. She is a South Indian village goddess. And such goddesses don't care about things like caste, class, ethnicity, or dietary habits. They don't care if you eat meat or not. In fact, many village goddesses are also meat-eating. As a deity available to everyone, regardless of national origin or religious affiliation, Kadumariamman is therefore suited to the contemporary American milieu in which the temple is situated. And I should note here that Pontiac is not a fancy suburb. There are fancy suburbs of Detroit. Pontiac is not one of them. It's a highly impoverished area with a lot of boarded up buildings. And so the situation of her there also sends a message that she doesn't care about who you are. Many temple devotees engage with and experience the goddess as a personal deity who intervenes in their lives on both material and spiritual planes. She helps devotees find homes or get jobs. She gives spiritual guidance and emotional comfort. And she assists with the mundane obstacles and difficulties that exemplify the human condition, such as interpersonal conflicts or even legal entanglements. She also dispenses blessings and performs miracles. In her study of a goddess temple in upstate New York, Corinne Dempsey reports that members of a modern, rational, educated Indian elite, a demographic to which many devotees at the Parashakthi Temple belong, often have little time for or interest in miracles, and therefore may experience their own encounters with seemingly miraculous events as conundrums. I have not found this to be the case at the Parashakthi Temple, where many devotees, regardless of ethnic origins, this includes also the white Americans, the Euro-Americans involved with the temple, accept the goddess's miraculous interventions, such as spontaneous healing from catastrophic illness, as a somewhat common occurrence. Temple discourse maintains that the goddess's interventions emanate from the vortex of Shakti available uniquely in concentrated form on site in Pontiac. I've heard temple officials say that while the goddess is everywhere, the Parashakthi Temple provides access to the divine through a faster cable than is available at other places. And this, of course, reflects some of the change of mission that happened in the 2010s, opening up the temple mission beyond protection to enabling, facilitating devotees exploring and experiencing her presence. The goddess is, however, simultaneously impersonal, transcendent, and abstract. In Hindu terms, both saguna and nirguna. I note here, coincidentally, that Vasudha Narayanan's inaugural Hindu View of Life lecture was on paradox. I don't know if you remember that, Frank, but I watched it online. She spoke about Vishnu in a completely different context, but her observations are pertinent here. Paradox is a generative category for thinking through Hindu traditions. The goddess is both personal and impersonal at the same time. In describing the goddess's impersonal dimensions, the temple draws on monistic, Upanishadic, Shakta, and Tantric representations of divinity. Hindu Tantric traditions, especially Kashmir Shaivism and Sri Vidya, have greatly influenced Kumar's religiosity and hence also that of the temple community. The term Tantra, for those of you unfamiliar with it, refers to a specific orientation or emphasis within Hinduism and other South Asian religions. Tantric traditions tend to embrace religious practices that enable humans to access and appropriate divine power for purposes of achieving both worldly enjoyment, or bhoga, and spiritual liberation, or moksha, a blissful state of awareness in which one perceives everything that exists as the divine, and in which one experiences freedom from all mundane attachments and cravings. Tantric texts generally present the created universe as the transformation of a single divine power that transcends all form but permeates the world at all levels as vibratory energy. The Parashakthi Temple envisions the goddess the same way. From 2007 to 2022, in fact, those were the years during which I conducted field research at the temple, 15 years, I noted an increased stress in official temple discourse on the transcendent, abstract dimensions of the goddess over the goddess's nature as a miracle-working, protective deity, although both emphases have endured. Just grab some water. The temple website asserts that on the highest level, the goddess is divine, pure, eternal consciousness, as you can see here, and pure light, sound, vibration, or spanda, term that comes, it's a tantric term, comes especially from Kashmir Shaivism, which it equates with the mantra Om. The world emerged when the divine started to oscillate very quickly as immensely hot spanda energy, which then cooled down to form the material universe, infusing it at every level with vibrating Shakti, a process that Kumar in Temple Talks has likened both to the birth contractions of the laboring maternal body and the cosmological theory known as the Big Bang, which was a physical theory before it was a popular television show. It really was. So we see her both as personal and impersonal, a mother giving birth and also the Big Bang. Drawing further on the language of modern cosmology, Kumar has emphasized the nature of the goddess as dark mass and dark energy, which he relates to supernovas and black holes, or as pure space and time. He has also stated plainly in Temple Talks that gods do not actually exist. Even the goddess does not really exist, at least in the way most people think. In fact, the temple website frequently uses scare quotes around, go back for a second, okay, around the pronoun her or the phrase eternal mother, as you can see here. Instead, Kumar insists, deities are ultimately just forms of pure physical energy or metaphors for psychological or spiritual realities, experiences, and processes. Like many other Americans from a variety of religious backgrounds, Kumar and some of the temple's key devotees have insisted that they are, quote, spiritual but not religious, close quote, and understand the Parashakthi Temple to be the foundation of a new spiritual movement that surpasses the parameters of religion, including Hinduism, at least as they understand those terms. And for those of you familiar with Theosophy, Kumar considered himself also a Theosophist theologically. Yeah, theologically. Theosophy has no ritual, and it doesn't have the devotional part, but intellectually. He's very influenced by Theosophy. And even Albert Einstein makes an appearance here. The temple invokes the words and vision of Albert Einstein, who published apparently, and I did not know this, but apparently he had published an editorial in the Boston Globe at some point, yes? Yeah? And he said that religion as we know it cannot survive, so a new movement that binds all of humanity is needed for the survival and prosperity of mankind. And Kumar, or the temple writes, because this is from the temple website, as you can see at the bottom, the vision of the temple is consistent with Einstein's concept. So the proclaimed new spiritual movement here is born from Hindu goddess traditions, but its roots are planted firmly in Michigan soil. What about objects? I'll leave this up. You can see here the bringing in of a bunch of different religious traditions, which again is very typical at this temple. Temple discourse, okay, objects. Temple discourse maintains that material forms at the temple wield a spiritual power, but they do so only insofar as the goddess has chosen them for her Western house. That's what the temple's called, the goddess's Western house. And had her human agents create or procure them, ritually prepare them, and then install them in temple space. Once established, temple objects and structures become, in the eyes of devotees, agents in and of themselves. This is true, for example, of the numerous murtis, or deity forms, that the temple housed before the 2018 fire, as well as those that have been installed since the reconsecration of the temple in 2022. All deities other than the goddess are proclaimed just to be her different energies, her different vibrations or spandas, which temple officials insist were already in the land where the temple now stands, but their physical form was needed to make that energy available to humans. The goddess, in her manifestation as a personal deity, has functioned at the Parashakthi Temple as divine curator, deciding which murtis to bring to the temple and then revealing those decisions to Kumar, who then had the murtis installed, constructed, and consecrated. She is said to select murtis on an ongoing basis, calling for the installation of those she believes to be the most efficacious in responding to the ever-changing needs of her devotees for spiritual advancement, as well as for warding off both local and global calamities. Divine power is also manifest in a grand 7-story Rajagopuram, or royal tower, that was completed in 2015. Now, Rajagopurams can be found at Hindu temples all around the world, and most especially at South Indian temples. Parashakthi Temple discourse, however, presents the Rajagopuram at the Parashakthi Temple as an immensely powerful protective structure that is unique in the world. On its 4 faces, the Rajagopuram features 520 images, or vigrahas, of Hindu deities. Kumar and the temple board oversaw the construction of the Rajagopuram and the placement of each of the vigrahas with a traditional temple architect and several craftsmen, sthapati and shilpi, executing its production. However, Kumar insists that the goddess herself identified through direct revelation to him each deity to be installed. He also has insisted that the goddess commanded that the Rajagopuram be constructed according to her precise instructions in order to circulate her grace-giving and protective energy effectively. All of the marble for all of the stone that is on the Rajagopuram is out of the same quarry in India, and a lot of it had to be chiseled out by hand, which added a lot of time and money to the construction of it, because according to Kumar, the goddess didn't want any violent energy to be in the stone, so they couldn't use dynamite to get it. Perhaps the most distinctive aspect of the Rajagopuram is the golden box that is now buried in the southeast corner, in there. The corner of Agni, deity of fire, who is associated with both transformation and communication. In Vedic sacrificial traditions and ongoing temple practices, Homa practices in particular, Agni serves as divine messenger who transforms sacrificial offerings into smoke to nourish the gods and carry human prayers to them. The box buried in Agni's corner is an object called the Shakti Garbha, or the womb of Shakti. Kumar stated that the goddess revealed to him in 2012 the need for a box-like object that would function to energize the Rajagopuram and make it spiritually effective. She also allegedly revealed to him what it would look like and commanded him to get it made according to her instruction. In 2013, Kumar brought this object back from India. Now, there are 60 kinds of items placed. There are only a few, the ones I was able to capture while madly taking photos, in the Shakti Garbha, including soil from India, gems and metals, 8 types of herbs, 8 types of medical medicines, and a variety of religious symbols, including Vaishnava, Shaiva, and Shakta symbols, that is, symbolic elements associated with Vishnu, Shiva, and the goddess, or the 3 most widely revered deities in Hinduism. A booklet distributed at the 2015 consecration that I brought with me asserted that these 60 substances altogether contain the seeds of creation, and hence are all that would be needed to recreate the universe if it were to be destroyed. The Shakti Garbha contains these items in 25 chambers, representing the 25 elements, the tattvas, that constitute the creative universe. And of course, this comes from Sankhya philosophy, and this idea of there existing 25 elements from which everything is constructed. Any thoughts as to what this might look like? Any Bible scholars in the audience? It's the Ark of the Covenant. That's exactly right. Temple Discourse likens the Shakti Garbha to the Ark of the Covenant, described first in the Hebrew Bible and elaborated in later Jewish and Christian sources. In the book of Exodus in the Hebrew Bible, God is said to reveal to Moses instructions for making a receptacle to contain the stone tablets on which were to be inscribed and later reinscribed the famous 10 Commandments proclaimed at Mount Sinai. This receptacle became known as the Ark of the Covenant, with the term ark here indicating a chest or a receptacle. It was to be made of acacia wood, but covered in gold both inside and out, with gold rings at each of its 4 feet. I don't know if you can see them. For poles to be attached so that it could be carried, and a cover or lid to be made of pure gold. 2 cherubim or angelic beings were to be fashioned on each end of the lid and placed facing each other, spreading their wings upward and looking down to the lid itself. The cherubim functioned both to guard the ark and to form a throne for God's presence, or God's Shekinah, to dwell above the lid, with the tablets containing the 10 Commandments at God's feet. The book of Numbers in the Hebrew Bible claims that the Israelites carried the ark with them when they left Sinai, with God journeying alongside the ark and the Israelites in the form of a cloud. The ark functions as the earthly embodiment of God's presence, moral instruction, and divine power, bridging the divide between God and human devotees. It is also associated with military victory and conquest, as its presence in the Israelite camp is said to have ensured God's help in battle. The ark eventually came to rest in the first temple in Jerusalem, although its fate after the first temple's destruction in 586 BCE is not known. Some Christian traditions, including Catholic tradition, Eastern Orthodoxy, and I believe the Anglican Church, later equated Mary, the mother of Jesus, with the Ark of the Covenant. Just as the original ark had been a unique vessel, blessed with the ability to contain God's power and moral teaching, so Mary was the new Ark of the Covenant, able to contain divinity and the new covenant, embodied as Jesus, within her body. And I just, in case you're going to ask me, I do know about Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, can't speak to the temple watch or to the movie watching habits of anybody at the temple, but I do know about the movie. The Shakti Garbha, installed at the Parashakthi Temple, is gilded, as the Ark of the Covenant is said to have been. On the top, instead of 2 cherubim, sit 2 lions, representing, as one key devotee wrote to me in an email, quote, the beast qualities of human beings, and how the Divine Mother will help us conquer that beast and use it for the welfare of society, close quote. Like the Ark of the Covenant, the Shakti Garbha has rings around the edge for staves to be inserted so it can be carried. When the ark was installed in the first temple in Jerusalem, it was given a special place in the Holy of Holies, the inner sanctum, where it resided at the exact center of the world, the whole world. In front of it stood the foundation stone that was described later in rabbinic commentary as the starting point of creation. Similarly, at the Parashakthi Temple, the installed Shakti Garbha represents the New World Center, the womb that contains in microcosmic form creation. And it renders the temple's Rajagopram, as was claimed in a 2012 newsletter, one of the holiest places in the world, at least to devotees, offering miraculous powers, I'm quoting here from the booklet, that will bring immense spiritual and material benefits to devotees, so both bhoga and moksha. The booklet given to devotees at the time of the consecration, which I have here. So this was the booklet that was handed out at the time. And actually, a bunch of ministers and a lot of people flew over from India for the installation. And it was actually reported in Chennai in the newspapers when this happened, when the Rajagopuram was consecrated. The booklet describes the mission of the Shakti Garbha as, quote, building and bridging peace between nations and bringing the individual into covenant with the divine, close quote. This proclaimed cosmic covenant also functions as a moral contract between the goddess and her devotees so that, quote, human beings will follow satya and dharma, righteousness, truthfulness and righteousness. The Shakti Garbha's power, like that of the Ark, facilitates victory in battle, although the temple understands the battle to be a spiritual one. Imagery invoking the biblical covenant, therefore becomes a vehicle for signifying the new pact that the divine is forming for a new millennium in a new American landscape and with a new covenantal community. And then finally, practice. Like other Hindu temples, the Parashakthi Temple is a site of what Axel Michaels calls ritual affluence. The Parashakthi Temple employs on a regular basis at least 3 trained temple priests, whose main duty is to perform sensorially rich rites that occur at the temple constantly. Some daily, others weekly, monthly, annually, and on special occasions. Now, this is not that unusual for Hindu temples, but ritual practice is especially abundant here at the Parashakthi Temple, in part because there are so many deities housed there. And every deity has their own feast, their own day, their own annual feast, their own vrat or votive ritual. Okay? So because of all of those deities, there's something happening all the time at the temple. Stephen Feld notes that perceptual engagements that occur through the bodily senses play a critical role in our conceptual constructions of place. The ongoing constant performance of sumptuous temple rites at the temple offers devotees strongly experienced sensory processes that occur only there, thereby affirming the presence of the goddess in her Western house and strengthening the sense of her emplacement in Pontiac. Kumar often used financial language to explain the spiritual value of temple rites, referring to the human body as, quote, a short-term rental, close quote, given that we are all mortal, calling on devotees to make a long-term investment in themselves through practices that help cultivate a relationship with the goddess and help devotees progress spiritually. In a temple talk he gave in 2022, for example, Kumar drew on the Upanishadic distinction between a pleasant life and a good life, Preya and Shreya. That is from, I believe, the Katha Upanishad. He urged devotees to choose a good life as it will give them the best ROI, return on investment, over the course of many rebirths. Participation in temple rites is a contribution to this investment. Recall here the tantric underpinnings of the temple, so that participating in these rites is a way to access that power for both bhoga and moksha, for both worldly, material, and spiritual gain. Michaels notes that while Hindu rites are rule-governed, nevertheless, one can play around with them, vary them, repeat them, transform them, and imitate them. As he says, one can put them together in different ways, like bricks. At the Parashakthi Temple, such variation is on display in several ways, including the manner in which the temple has adopted American celebrations. For example, the goddess's cosmic creative capacity has come to be celebrated annually on Mother's Day, which the temple observes as a day of religious practice and prayer. Before a recent Mother's Day, for example, an email announcing a special abhishekam, or a ritual bathing of the Murti, emphasized the nature of the goddess as the one who gives her children, quote, the highest knowledge, the Brahma Vidya, meaning the knowledge of the divine or of God, and described motherhood as the symbol of love, compassion, and forbearance. Each Mother's Day, devotees bring roses to the temple to offer the goddess as they might do for their human mothers. Kumar often undertook pilgrimage journeys, or what are called yatras, on behalf of the temple community, since most temple devotees lack the time, money, or both to go on regular pilgrimages. Much of the scholarly literature on pilgrimage focuses on the effect of the journey on the pilgrim, for whom the journey is intended to be in some way transformational. Knut Jakobsen notes with respect to Hindu pilgrimage sites that they are, quote, places of extraordinary power, close quote, that are believed to have a particular ability to fulfill wishes and grant salvation. The pilgrimages that Kumar undertook, however, are generally of a kind called pratinidhi. Pratinidhi pilgrimage is an established Hindu practice where one undertakes a pilgrimage on behalf of someone else, usually a family member who is infirm or otherwise unable to make the journey themselves. Kumar undertook pratinidhi journeys constantly, not because they were transformational for him or for others undertaking the journey with him, because temple board members, family members, friends, all kinds of people would go with him on these journeys, but instead because of their role as vehicles of transformation for the temple and the temple community. A central goal of these journeys was to secure the Shakti, power, available at the sites to which the goddess is said to have sent Kumar, and bring it back to the Parashakthi Temple, thereby augmenting the power available to devotees and, by extension, the larger Western world, us. Kumar claimed that the goddess decided when and where he must journey. He did not make these decisions for himself. Some of the places to which he traveled are well-known Shakti sites, such as Gaurikund. So this is one he undertook as you can see, in 2021. Other sites are neither Shakta nor well-known. Gaurikund, Gauri is another name for Parvati, and Kund is a tank, bathing tank. It's a spot in the Himalayas. For example, in 2019, Kumar reported that the goddess had him journey to the site of the Rishi, or the sage Dadichi's Jiva Samadhi. That is the place where he is said to have left his mortal body, Dadichi, to collect the energy residing there. Dadichi is famous in the Puranas for sacrificing his life so that the deity Indra could use his bones to make the weapon needed to kill the demon Vritra, who was hoarding life-giving water. This is also a hymn in the Rig Veda. Some of the pilgrimages that Kumar undertook were not even to India. On one of my visits to the temple, for example, Kumar told me he had recently returned from Pompeii, Italy, where he says the goddess sent him to meditate. Kumar insisted that there were specific leftover energies inherent in the Pompeii landscape that he needed to gather and bring back to the temple because of the intense emotions embedded there, presumably of those who had died when Mount Vesuvius erupted almost 2,000 years ago. Kumar claimed that intense feelings draw deities, devatas, who stay in such places so one can go there to draw the energy from them. Hence, the practice of pratinidhi pilgrimage has functioned in temple discourse to intensify the temple's power, its Shakti, and enhance its spiritual efficacy, making divine power consistently available in increasing intensity to all those who come there and are able to access it. So in conclusion, coming back to Radhakrishnan. The discourse and practices promulgated at the Parashakthi Temple construct a form of religiosity that is rooted firmly in Indian Hindu goddess traditions, but combines and amends these traditions to suit, as Radhakrishna has put it, the spirit of the age and the need of the hour, with special reference to the needs of a more complex and mobile social order that emerges as the mingling of populations brings an interchange of thought between and among traditions. So these are the same quotes with which I started. Robert Orsi has observed that religion as it is practiced always entails an ongoing dynamic relationship with the realities of everyday life, such that people appropriate religious idioms as they need them in response to specific circumstances. He notes further that all religious ideas and impulses are of the moment, invented, taken, borrowed, and improvised at the intersections of life. Lived religion is shaped and experienced in the interplay among venues of everyday experience, and inherited religious idioms, combined with cultural structures and particular historical moments, to give rise to religious creativity and improvisation. Religious people may also think of themselves as living in an alternative topography, writes Peggy Levitt, that has nothing to do with nation states, official borders, or any of that kind of division, but is instead delineated by the sacred as they understand it. This topography transforms as it responds and adapts to both local and global pressures and shifts. The Parashakthi Temple as a central and is essential, both central and essential node in the networks of divine power that extend throughout the layers of creation. I'm eager to see what was going to happen to the temple's character following the recent death of its beloved leader. Thank you very much.
cswr.hds.harvard.edu. Copyright 2026. The President and Fellows of Harvard College.